I'll tell a story, which I've told many times, but it's very important and very ironic and telling about how things seep up on you, both in your consciousness and unconsciousness. I went to school at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana in 1963. And that was a place where all my relatives went, my grandmother, my father, my mother, my uncles, and so on and so forth. And just my brother, it's just where we went. My father was from Central Illinois, from the town of Lincoln, right smack in the middle of the flat cornfield. And as a child, going back as a child, we had to go up there to visit an ailing grandmother quite frequently from Louisville, which was a good 5 to 6 hour drive in those days. And it may still be for that matter. And as soon as I was about 10, 11, we would get to the border of Illinois. As you go west from Indianapolis, it flattens out like a pancake. And every time we did this trip, we would have this dialogue, my father and I guess my brother was in the car too. He'd go, "Ah, we're in the land of Lincoln. Isn't it wonderful?" I would roll my eyes and say, Lincoln was from Kentucky. And Kentucky is a beautiful state, blah, 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 with rolling hills and green grass. There's nothing here but flat corn. He would say, "Son, you just don't see it." I said, "What's to see?" He said, "It's in the horizon line." Skip forward 7, 8 years. I'm a senior at the University of Illinois. I've been an English major and a journalism minor, and something tells me that in the last semester of my senior year, I'm going into the Peace Corps that summer, that I should take a photography course and use this wonderful camera that my father left me. He had died several years earlier. I trundle over to where the art and photography department were in the basement of the Cranard Art Museum to register. I don't know why you did it then. And in the transom was this long panorama of the Illinois landscape, black and white, just the horizon and the corn and a couple of barns and houses on it. I looked at it, I stopped on the stairs. I said, "Oh my God, that's what my father's talking about." And that imprint is very important. And I'm sure every photographer, every artist has such tales. And the teacher turned out to be Art Sinzaba, who was a very famous photographer relatively to what fame was for photography in those days. And that was a piece from the Midwest Landscape series he did with text by Sherwood Anderson, published by Jonathan Williams. He was the teacher, and kind of the rest is history in terms of my switch from whatever I thought I might do or could do to where I was going. There was a lot of difficulty in between. I was in the Peace Corps, I was injured, I was married and going into the Peace Corps. First wife was killed in an accident in the Peace Corps. And then I came back, I had to terminate, and I knew I wanted to do something with photography, and I jumped into the graduate program at the University of Louisville, where I knew the dean. It was already October, they let me in. I had some clout. And they said, "Well, this is the graduate program in humanities. You can decide, you can sort of structure what you want." So I took design courses and history courses and other things like that, but American, kind of American studies kinds of things. And the head of the art department was Robert Doherty. I don't know if you know who he was. Most people probably we're talking to don't. But he was later the head of the George Eastman House International Museum of Photography. And he was a student, had been a student at Yale of Walker Evans and Eisenman and others. So it was a wonderful, he said, "Well, do whatever you want to do, which I did. I was also fortunate enough to know about. By that time, I was doing everything I could to learn about what's going on in photography, finding whatever books there were. Somewhere in that period, I remember taking a trip to New York to go to the Museum of Modern Art, where there was the Cincinnati, the permanent exhibition. There always was for many years. Buying books there, going to the Strand bookstore, which I frequent probably once a week today. And I started photographing Louisville, and I knew about Gene Meatyard. I went down to meet Meatyard, who was a remarkable photographer and friend, mentor, and I became a member of the Lexington Camera Club. All of that lasted about a year and a half. I got drafted, heading to Vietnam with a rifle in a company which was mostly college graduate or had some college education. Got out on a fluke ailment, which was real, on vasculitis. That's a whole nother story that could take up too much time, but it was a wonderful story. And I was back on the block, so to speak, in just 2 weeks before going to Nam. Very lucky. My whole life turned around at that point. And I got on the phone, and because I knew about the Institute of Design in Chicago, I called Aaron Siskin up. I didn't know him, of course, but I knew of him by then, and told him my story. And he said, "Son, you sound good. You plan to come on up in September, get your stuff in, and we'll do it." Okay, thank you. He said, "Okay, bub." Come September, I was there. So that's how I got started.